Thank you.
All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Nikki. I'm our Director of Volunteer Engagement and Operations, and I am happy to welcome you to tonight's monthly meeting of 350 Wisconsin. I'd also like to thank our volunteer, Susan Nossel. She's supporting us in the chat and helping us with breakout rooms tonight. And the rest of our 350 and 350 Wisconsin Action staff team is helping out as well. So, as we get started here, I'd like to start by turning it over to our staff person, Brittany, who is going to lead tonight's land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Nikki. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well tonight. Thank you for being here. As we gather here tonight to organize in pursuit of intersectional climate justice, we must also recognize that we are a part of a system shaped by white colonialism, genocide and ethnic cleansing, and forced removal of the indigenous nations who have called this land home for thousands of years. This land that we call Wisconsin is the ancestral homeland of nations including, but not limited to, the Ojibwe, Ho-Chunk, Potawatomi, Dakota, and Menominee peoples. And these nations continue to call this land home to this day. We invite you to learn more about the tribal histories of your location, and we call on governments, communities, and ourselves to fight the erasure of Indigenous history by honoring Indigenous voices, stories, traditions, and leadership in our lives and work. We have a few links that we'll share in the chat with you all as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Brittany. And no worries, Kay, if you can only attend for a short time. This will be recorded, and so you can go back and look at the rest if you would like. So here's an overview of tonight's meeting. So we are still in our opening welcome right now. And I want to pause and extend an extra warm welcome to anyone who is new here or here for the very first time. Hope you feel good about being here, and we're excited to connect with you. There will be opportunities at the end as well to learn more about how you can get involved. You can also stick around at the end of the meeting and chat with me, as I am our volunteer coordinator, and I love to connect with people who are just joining us for the first time. So, as a part of this welcome, we also want 350 Wisconsin's public meetings to be welcoming and affirming and supporting for everybody, regardless of background or identity. And so our code of conduct is going to be shared in the chat to provide some more context. So feel free to contact me or Susan or anyone else if you have any questions about that. All right, so now that we have talked through that, I would like to introduce tonight's speakers. Tonight's speakers are well known to us at 350 Wisconsin, as they are both staff members here. So the first is Stephanie Robinson, our illustrious executive director, and Kristen Clark, our development manager, who supports our communications and political advocacy. So we are very happy to have them here today to talk through how we can support democracy protection and teach people about why that is important. So I will turn it over to Stephanie and Kristen.
Thank you, Nikki. Welcome everyone to tonight's training, Democracy Protection Connection, Hands Off Our Vote. We are so happy that you're here tonight. If you haven't already, please share in the chat where you're from and also what motivated you to attend the training tonight. Tonight is a skills training to help us become trusted messengers who get accurate information out early, ensure confidence in our elections, and link democracy protection to climate justice. Before we dig into the training, we first wanted to share where our guidance is coming from and why we're doing this now. We'll be sharing what we've learned from partners in the democracy protection space through our association with a number of state, regional, and national coalitions, including the Wisconsin Democracy Defense Coalition, the National Election Protection and Election Safeguard Response Network, People's Action, Rural Democracy Initiative, and REAMP, a climate network spanning states across the Midwest and beyond. These partners are sharing communication with us and also guidance, telling us this is an all-of-society moment and the usual legal approaches and organizing are inadequate. People need to take the threat very seriously. It is not hyperbole. And we need a massive grassroots movement for Get Out the Vote. And we need to be ready to mobilize if red lines are crossed. That would mean things like ICE at the polls, election clerk intimidation, ballot seizure, etc. They're also sharing with us that what happens in one state affects every other state. And if we push back here, that can reduce the chances of red lines being crossed elsewhere. Finally, we can start now and take action that will help us do early communication before false narratives take hold. That's called pre-bunking. Next. So tonight, our primary goal is to learn a core narrative and how to counter disinformation. We'll briefly address why democracy protection matters to climate work. We'll identify narratives that seek to divide us and exploit the 250th anniversary and other key moments. We'll talk about what we can do about it. We'll have a practice scenario. Then we'll look ahead to possible red lines and grassroots mobilization. And by the end, you'll leave with a narrative that you can repeat and a clear way to get the truth out prominently so falsehoods don't take hold. So how is protecting democracy and protecting the climate connected? I think it's helpful to be explicit about this. So we know voting rights and elections shape climate policy, environmental justice, and community power. When people are blocked from voting or their votes aren't counted, frontline communities lose power over the decisions that affect their lives. And democracy protection, therefore, is part of protecting people and places. So we'd like to begin by doing a word cloud together. We're going to ask you in just 1 to 2 words to tell us, what do you think is the biggest threat to free and fair elections? We're going to give you a QR code to scan on the screen, and then you can enter your response.
And if people don't have a phone, I think you can go to slido.com on your computer and then put in the number too, right?
Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, thank you.
See one answer. See 2 people typing. So take a moment to think about it, and hopefully we'll start to see, yeah, some other words pop up on the screen. Money. Lots of great answers here. Whoa. Definitely one prominent one. Yep. We'll keep waiting as we can still see people are typing. All right. Lots of great answers here. Clearly, we are all seeing things happening that are causing a lot of concern about authoritarianism and threats to democracy and voting rights. Let you all finish. There's a couple more. Okay. All right, maybe we can move on. Thanks, everybody, for contributing to our word cloud. So, in fact, we can see from recent headlines that our concerns are well-founded. Efforts to undermine democratic elections and voting are already happening. These efforts include seizing election ballot materials and stopping the count. We saw not just a few months ago, Riverside County Sheriff seized 650,000 ballots. We're also seeing voter suppression laws and policies like the SAVE Act, requiring proof of citizenship like passports or birth certificates that disenfranchise married women who've changed their name, rural folks, low-income people, and attempts to restrict vote by mail. We're also aware of violence and intimidation, threats by ICE and the Proud Boys to show up at the polls. We're also seeing attacks on nonprofit organizations, branding as terrorists groups that don't agree with the administration, and even an FBI raid on an Ohio voter registration nonprofit. Of course, disinformation, as we noted in our word cloud, a big word. For years, we've been hearing without evidence that elections are rigged and that there's massive voter fraud, especially by non-citizens. And of course, the subversion of the results, starting in 2020 with that election in January 6th. And these efforts all have in common the goal of keeping people from voting so that power can be consolidated. And of course, this is all part of the larger landscape in authoritarian threats to democracy, including redistricting, criminalizing freedom of speech, arresting protesters and handing down harsh sentences, attacks on immigrant communities, dehumanization, denial of habeas corpus, and just a general pattern of intimidation and violence. So, of course, this all sounds pretty scary and overwhelming, but we can act and we can do something about it. So this is where I'm going to turn things over to Kristen and get more into the heart of the training.
Before I get started, is the word inequality staying on the screen for everyone from our word cloud?
I typed it there at the very end and I can't get it to go away either.
Oh, I can't see it.
I think Brittany sees it. So I'm gonna briefly just unshare and reshare my screen,
Okay.
and then we'll be back with your regularly scheduled programming.
Thank you.
All right, here we are. So between now, the election, and beyond, there are really three phases of the work that we are going to be focusing on as an organization. The first is communicate and communication. Using communication as a democracy defense tactic means grounding people in shared values, getting accurate information out early, and refusing to let anti-voter forces define the story. When we lead with a clear, values-based narrative, we help inoculate people against confusion and fear before falsehoods take hold. The second part of this would be mobilize. We need a massive grassroots effort to turn out people and keep them informed, not just in one community or one state, but everywhere. This looks like building voter turnout, lining up volunteers, and having clear scripts and messages that we repeat across our networks. This is about showing up in numbers and making sure our communities know their voices matter. The third of which is defend, and this is about being ready to act quickly if red lines are crossed, as Stephanie has already mentioned above. Tonight's training focuses just on the communication piece, but as an organization, we are planning for all three of these. But to jump into communication, we are looking ahead here. So for communication, and in the following slides, I'm going to cover the following in more detail. First, we establish shared values. Voters should choose our leaders. Every eligible voter should have a say, and our communities deserve real power. Then we pre-bunk and inoculate by sharing accurate information early so confusion and lies don't take hold. Finally, we reclaim the narrative by repeating our story, hands off our vote, protect the freedom to vote, and defend the power of every voice, so their fear-based frames don't define what patriotism and democracy mean. When we start from shared values, we're reminding people what we're fighting for. Basing our communication in what unites us helps people feel seen and less defensive. Shared values are the anchor for everything that follows. They keep our messaging grounded, hopeful, and harder to hijack. Let's take a deeper look at each one of these shared values. When we say patriotism means working for a better USA for all, we're saying love of country shows up as care for our neighbors, protection of our communities, and a commitment to make this place safer and fairer for everyone, not just the already powerful. In America, the people are supposed to be in charge. This is the promise written into our founding documents. But the people has never automatically meant everybody. It has been expanded again and again by struggle, by Black organizers, Indigenous leaders, immigrants, workers, women, queer and trans people, and frontline communities demanding to be included. When we say the people means all the people, we're insisting that this idea belongs to all of us now. When we say voting is an act of resistance, that's because in a system where some are trying to take away our voice by suppressing votes, spreading lies, and attacking election workers, showing up to vote is how we push back. It's a way of saying we are here, we matter, and we're not handing our future to those who want to narrow who counts as an American. And the last line, it's up to us, is the pivot to action. No one is coming to save our democracy and our climate for us. It's up to ordinary people to talk to neighbors, show up in elections, defend each other, and keep telling this different story about what patriotism really means. The heart of this narrative is that anti-voter forces try to keep people from voting so they can hold on to power. Most people, regardless of party, believe every eligible voter should be able to participate and every vote should count. That gives us a strong place to start, not with their lies, but with our values. Hands off our vote gives us a simple, clear, values-based phrase we can actually use in real conversations. It names the threat without getting lost in policy jargon. And it reminds people that attacks on voting are really about power, about deciding who gets heard and who gets shut out. Voters should choose our leaders. Elections are meant to be about us choosing them, not about them choosing which of us get a say. And our job is to protect the freedom to vote and the power of every voice. When we repeat this, we're shifting the conversation away from their fear-based narratives and back to our shared values of inclusion, fairness, and community power. Here on this slide, we have a really helpful table, and all of these messages and this guidance, again, has been researched and tested, and this particular messaging has been tested with left, and center right voters. And it's a really helpful table to help us think about the phrasing that we're using to talk about these issues. So instead of saying free and fair elections or safe and secure elections, instead we want to say things like hands off our vote, free and democratic elections, or protect our vote. Why we want to do this is because fair means different things to different people and can be contested. And secure can reinforce their anti-voter framing. Instead of saying things like democracy or our duty or equal say, we want to instead say voting impacts our lives. This is because it's more personal and it's more concrete. Therefore, it's going to resonate more with whoever we're speaking to. Instead of saying things like voter suppression or silence our voices, we want to say things like they are trying to keep or block or prevent eligible Americans from voting. That is because it's more vivid and it's an easier picture to paint. Instead of saying things like they're saying a phrase like require proof of citizenship in regards to voting, we would want to say that they are trying to require a passport or birth certificate to vote. This is because it is showing concrete burdens are more persuasive than policy shorthand. And we're making it more specific and more concrete to those we're speaking to. Additionally, instead of saying things like erode democracy or undermine our elections, we want to say control the results of our elections. This makes the consequence clearer and more urgent. Additionally, instead of providing no explanation of their motivation, we want to make it very clear that their motivation is to seize more power. This is impactful because it's naming the power grab and it helps people understand their intent. So moving into how falsehoods spread, we want to talk about disinformation and misinformation because they're related, but they are not the same. Disinformation is different because it is deliberate. Someone creates or spreads a false story to mislead, manipulate, or cause harm. Misinformation is false or misleading information shared unintentionally. Someone believes it's true and passes it along in good faith. Strategically, that distinction matters because the same false claim often starts as disinformation and then spreads as misinformation when regular people unknowingly share it. Emotion supercharges this process. Content that sparks anger or fear or outrage gets more attention, and social media algorithm tends to boost those posts. That's how deliberate disinformation, amplified by platforms, private networks, and high-volume super spreaders, such as someone with a large social media following, can travel quickly and end up shaping what many people see and believe. Disinformation often looks ordinary at first. A rumor about deadlines, a misleading post about ballot counting, or an attack on the people who run elections. But the pattern matters. These messages are designed to provoke emotion, lower trust, and not just share bad facts. Our goal is to inoculate people against this. By helping them see the pattern ahead of time, we make it easier for them to recognize manipulative content when it shows up and harder for those lies to take hold. And when I say we, I don't just mean Stephanie and I mean all of you. So to fight disinformation, first we want to make sure that we don't amplify the lie. If we lead by repeating the lie, even to refute it, we can strengthen the recall of the falsehood. That is why our job is not to chase every rumor. Our job is to pre-bunk. The idea is simple. We get out in front of false stories by telling people the truth first, clearly and calmly, before lies have a chance to spread. When we do that, we're not just correcting misinformation after the fact, we're inoculating people against it. We should also name the threat plainly. We should say that some bad actors are trying to manipulate people for power by making them doubt elections and their own participation. Then we lead with the truth and set expectations. For Wisconsin, that means saying elections in Wisconsin are safe and well run. Voting by mail and using drop boxes are safe and trustworthy ways to vote. It takes time to count all votes, and that is normal. And there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud. When people hear those truths ahead of time, they're less likely to panic or believe a false claim when they see it later. Now, how do we actually apply this messaging guidance in real life and not just in trainings like tonight? The most powerful thing we can do is talk with people we already know and see. Friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, and the folks we run into every day. We also bring this message into the spaces where people gather, community events, group chats, and our social media feeds. Wherever your people are, that's where this narrative should show up. Those relationships are where trust lives, and trusted messengers are the ones who can stop lies from taking hold. When we do that, we keep our language simple, repeatable, and personal. We're not giving a speech, we're having a conversation. Timely, concrete examples help. Talking about the upcoming election, what to expect when votes are counted, or why protecting the freedom to vote matters in your community. Don't be vague. Specifics make it real. And remember, different audiences need different frames, but the narrative always stays the same. You might say it one way to a friend of yours who's really concerned about climate change, and another way to a neighbor who cares about schools in your neighborhood. But underneath, you're always telling the same story about voters choosing our leaders and protecting the power of every voice. That consistency, repeated by many trusted messengers, is what helps inoculate our communities against confusion and manipulation. So now we have a practice scenario for you all to get involved in. We are going to head into breakout rooms, and when we do so, you'll all get a chance to practice being a trusted messenger in a real-world situation. Here's the scenario. Your neighbor says, "I'm not planning to vote. Elections are rigged anyways, and my vote doesn't matter." Your job is to respond in a way that's grounded in shared values and pre-bunking, not repeating the rumor. In your breakout, you'll be in groups of 3 to 4 people, and each person will have about 1 minute to try out what they would say to that neighbor. After someone speaks, the others in the group can take about 30 seconds to share a phrase they really liked or one suggestion they may have. Then switch to the next person until everyone has a turn. When we come back together, we will debrief. Additionally, I believe these instructions are being put in the chat as well. So once we get into breakout rooms, you will still be able to see the scenario prompt and the instructions. But we will head to those breakout rooms now.
Yes. Are people able to go to get to the rooms? Oh, yes, it looks like they are. Okay, good. Nikki, did you stop the recording too?
Everyone. Okay, hello everyone. I think just about everyone should be back. So now we would love to do a brief debrief And we invite you all to put a comment in the chat if you would like to, what felt comfortable, what felt awkward, what lines might you actually use with your own neighbors, friends, coworkers. And if people are comfortable, we would love for just a few people to come off mute and chat about your experience in your breakout room so people can use their raise the hand function in Zoom. If you don't know how to do that, it's the react button at the bottom of your screen, and then you can click raise hand. Perfect. I see. Susan, go ahead.
We had a great conversation with Eve, and one of the things that she said that really struck me was to remind people that if voting didn't matter, then why are these people making such a fuss about keeping you from wanting to vote? Which I thought was a really valuable point.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Thank you so much for bringing that back from your breakout room and sharing it with all of us. Kermit?
One thing I appreciated about Ellen was how she added, I don't know that it was specifically mentioned in the training, but she started with acknowledging what I'd said, as I assumed the persona of the neighbor who was not going to vote, and express sympathy or empathy with, yeah, I know it can be frustrating, or I hear this stuff that makes, and then went on from there, having started with a little touch of empathy, to then talk a little then about values and other parts of the messaging.
Yeah, that's really great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that out, Kermit. Did anyone else want to come off mute and share about their breakout room? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you everyone for participating in that. I hope it felt helpful. Susan, are you trying to?
Yeah, oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, there's a few comments in the chat. Maybe we'd want to read them. Or
Sure.
out loud. Mhm.
Michael said that sometimes it's difficult to argue against these remarks just because, people in a Zoom room such as this, we know how important voting is. And that Kelly said discussing helps to give more ideas about questioning as a tool rather than having a discussion. Terry said, I have been a worker at a polling place and central count, and from what he sees, every vote is counted, which is what we love to hear. And what we all know is true, right? We all know that election workers do their jobs how they're supposed to and count every vote. So yeah, thank you everyone for participating in those breakout rooms. So now that we have gone through the training and gone through this presentation, we wanted to share briefly just some more ideas on how you can use this democracy protection messaging training to make an impact in our communities. So the first one is to take this message with you everywhere you go. Doesn't matter who you're talking with. The more you can sprinkle in these phrases and these shared values, the greater impact that we're going to have. Additionally, to reshare information from trusted sources, especially on social media, whether that's from our social media accounts, giving it a share, or our partners, such as the League of Women Voters here in Wisconsin, also share a lot of really great information. So sharing information from trusted sources. Additionally, if this type of communication is something that you would like to do more of and get more involved with, we invite you to attend a deep canvas training with Nikki, our Director of Operations and Volunteer Engagement. I'm going to drop her email in the chat here in just a moment, as well as reach out to Nikki if you'd be interested in tabling with us at a community event. We're really tabling at a lot of different really cool events this summer and into the fall, heading towards the election all across the state. And so if you would like to table with us and just get out and talk to lots of different folks, we would really appreciate that. Additionally, you have the opportunity to join one of our new regional outreach teams in one of the 5 following geographies. So La Crosse, Platteville, Eau Claire, River Falls/Hudson, and Wausau. These outreach teams are designed to have a wide geographic impact that's really intentional. These are a commitment of going to these places once a month, one day of the month, every month leading up to the election. So we're hoping that people can take one day out of their busy lives and travel to these locations and again, share this messaging, knock on some doors, attend some community events, and help us build our messaging across the state in these places. Additionally, we invite you all to attend a ACLU training, one of their Know Your Voter Rights training, and I am also going to put that in the chat here in just one moment. And so with that, I would like to thank you all for attending tonight's training. We really greatly appreciate it. And sorry, I lost my little screen here. We thank you for attending tonight's training. And before we move into our organizational updates, we would have time for just 1 or 2 questions that people may have. Thanks so much.
I am answering the question that Kermit put in the chat here. Will the regional outreach teams use planned events and carpooling? The answer to that is yes. So the events will be planned ahead of time, and anybody who is on that regional team would be welcome to carpool together and get there together, which is part of why we wanted to start those regional teams so that people could have an easier time getting transportation for places that they aren't necessarily currently living if they're on a team that they are not already in that community.
Kristen, you're still screen sharing. We can see your screen.
All right. If there aren't any other questions, we are going to move into our announcements for the evening. So if Kristen, you want to bring back our screen here. All right. So first up is me. So hello again, volunteer coordinator. And I have some very exciting volunteer opportunities coming up that I would like to share with all of you. The first is volunteering with us at Taste of Madison. So it seems like September is super far away, but fortunately or unfortunately, it is not. And so we need people to sign up to work a shift at our beer tent at Taste of Madison. It's a really great opportunity. We make a couple of $1,000s in one day of volunteering for doing this because we get all the tips that we make plus a portion of total proceeds from the entire day. So we're on the Capitol Square for Taste of Madison, specifically at the corner of State Street and West Mifflin. And we have 2 shifts, so you can either be in the morning or the afternoon. And it's a lot of fun. People who do it have a good time with it, so it is a lot of fun. And we'll be putting links to that in the chat. You do have to sign up twice, and that is because we have to sign up through Taste of Madison, but they don't have shifts. So they want to know that you're coming, but they won't tell you if you're going to be in the morning or the afternoon. And so because of that, there are two sign-up sheets that I just put in the chat. You'd have to sign up at both of them. But we would love to see you there. Next slide. All right, so we also have a bunch of upcoming trainings coming along. So the first, like mentioned by Kristen, is our deep canvassing training. And deep canvassing is really all about connecting with people on a personal level about issues that we all care about, like climate and voting, and being able to actually change people's perspectives and their minds. This is one of the only proven ways to do that. And we have some regional deep canvas trainings available. Oh, looks like we have a Slack on the screen there. So we have regional deep canvas trainings available, and um, just because, we're trying to get people from all different regions in Wisconsin to attend, but if you are not in one of these regions, these are virtual. You can attend any one of them. So it is a two-part training series. Part one is, like I said, we have a bunch of part ones coming up. They are going to be similar with some regional differences, but like I said, if you're in Madison, Milwaukee, if you're in Green Bay, if you're in none of these areas, they will still be really helpful to you. So if there's a day that works for you, highly encourage you to attend. And then part two is focused on really practicing those skills that we build in the part one, and that is where for all regions. So we'll put links to that in the chat. And then we also have our World is Burning and You're Burned Out series. And this is an 11-part series. We're, I think, on part 5, 4, 5. And we're really getting into the meat of things now. So these are the upcoming topics that will be shared on these specific days. This training is really helpful if you want to really start to understand the deeper strategies, tactics surrounding organizing in a lot of different capacities. So we will put some links for that in the chat as well. All right, and then my volunteer corner. So a couple of other volunteer opportunities that we have, and there will be more of this as well. So monthly meeting team is still seeking volunteers. So if you'd like to be a part of this meeting, helping people feel welcome and supporting that team, that is an opportunity. We also have our regional canvassing teams that we've talked about. And we also have various events that are coming up. So you'll hear more about that in the coming slides, but one of them is helping out at our Olbrich After Hours. So if you would like to see our art collective do a really cool performance while enjoying a bunch of really lovely plants and scenery, highly recommend tabling at Olbrich. If you are interested in any of these things, you can contact me. My email will be in the chat so that you can get involved. And now
Me
I shall
again.
pass it off to Kristen.
So for our organization, we have some really fun and lovely summer events coming up. That really great opportunity to just get out, talk, meet, gather with people in person, and really just have a lovely evening out. So our next one is the Olbrich Beer Garden Benefit. That is July 21st in a few weeks from 5 to 9 p.m. Following that, we have our annual picnic, which is going to take place instead of this Zoom meeting that we normally have for a monthly meeting in August. Instead of getting on Zoom, we have an in-person picnic in Madison at a park that will be announced shortly, and that's August 3rd, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Following that, we have our Delta Beer Lab benefit, August 13th from 5 to 9 p.m. Another really lovely chance where we have a local business such as Olbrich supporting our organization by donating proceeds of the funds from their the proceeds from the evening will be donated to us, which is really generous, and we're grateful for their support. And additionally, as Nikki already mentioned, sorry, I've been talking too much tonight, we have our Taste of Madison booth. So we hope to either have you out there as a volunteer or just swing by our booth to grab a drink and enjoy the event and support us that way as well. And so more information about this will all be coming out, but I also invite you to perhaps take a picture of the screen quickly too, if you don't want to forget any of these really fun events and when they're happening. Thanks so much.
This part is my part. Hello to some of you I have not had the opportunity to meet. My name is Kat Claus. I am the new deputy director, and I think I've been here for about a month now. I'm excited to talk about the Progress for the People Town Hall, just as we were talking about ways to protect democracy. One of those ways is showing up in person and showing up loud for the things that you believe in. The Progress for the People Town Hall is bringing together many groups, leaders, advocates, and neighbors fighting for working families. The point of this group is to bring together the issue of affordability. I don't know about y'all, but everything is expensive: gas, groceries, my utility bills, things like that. And it is an opportunity to uplift climate and that connection between affordability and climate action, so we can fight for our people, our planet, and our pocketbook. It is in Racine, and I know some people are traveling across the state. I'm meeting up with some people to carpool. I will put the registration link in the chat if you would like to join us on July 8th in Racine at the Racine Memorial Hall. And if not, I'm happy to take questions, and I will put my email in the chat.
All right, up next we have Mark.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to be covering just an update about our candidate accountability work. So if y'all haven't heard of this, it's something new that we're doing with the primary going on that's coming up August 11th for our upcoming elections. We're doing grassroots outreach with the candidates, getting folks to go to candidate events and ask them questions about key climate issues like energy, data centers, as well as, and there's a whole lot of different things you can kind of choose. The goal is to kind of make sure they hear from us on these issues and kind of push them to think more of solutions. We have some upcoming opportunities we're looking for volunteers to fill. Um, I have one listed for each of the upcoming candidates. There is also a Tom Tiffany event in Medford. So right now, for this upcoming week, it's grouped around the Madison area as well as up north. So those are the events. I will add a link to our working document, which will also have the sign-up links for these events if you're interested. That is all. I just want to emphasize it's important to go to these events and ask questions of them just to make sure they get a sense of what's important to us.
This is my slide, but I'm going to go. So we have our political action team that helps us elect climate champions and connect with voters. So having these conversations, just like Kristen and Stephanie talked to us about, is one of the only ways you can move people on issues. Our political action team right now is meeting biweekly. It helps shapes our strategy. We do candidate endorsements. We recruit volunteers and all kinds of things like that. We are currently hoping to grow our team by 5 people. So my specific ask of anybody in this call is to consider joining yourself or to share our one pager, which Nikki has put in the chat there to somebody you know. You can share it on social media. You can email somebody. I think direct asks are most important. We want to make sure we have a political action team that represents the diversity of our great state. So regionally, other life and lived experience to make sure that we are helping promote candidates and issues that align with all of our goals. So my big ask tonight is if you would look at that one pager, give it a glance, consider if it's right for you, or again, share it out with somebody else.
Hi, everyone. It is me again. Here to talk about our upcoming voter outreach opportunities with our C4 350 Wisconsin Action. I think as you all have learned here today, and as Susan mentioned, these elections wouldn't be so important if they weren't trying to take away. But we know they're important, otherwise they wouldn't be trying to take away our right to vote. Our work is about building political power here in Wisconsin to make the changes that we want to see. We heavily emphasize grassroots outreach, one-on-one personal conversations with people. That includes deep canvassing and door-to-door canvassing, going to community events and talking to people, right at, farmers markets, that kind of things. We talked about our regional teams. There's more than a dozen state legislative races that will be determining who controls the state legislature. That depending on how it goes, it would be an opportunity for us for the first time in 16 years to get new leadership. So odds are you're within an hour driving distance of one of these districts. Key regional teams we've already talked about, in particular the Southwest, La Crosse, and the Eau Claire Menominee area. There's also River Falls, Wausau that we've talked about before. Just some upcoming opportunities that, we're looking for volunteers to support our work. If you're interested, please email Nikki. This also gives you a sense of what kind of things that we would be doing with a regional team. So each of these, we have a set amount of time at a community event. In the cross, we'll be at the Interstate Fair or something like that. And then we'll also be spending another part of that day door knocking. You're able to do either one or both. So if you're interested in any of these times, they're on weekends, please email Nikki, as we mentioned before. And if you have any questions, put them in the chat and you can also email us. Thank you.
All right. So, if you are interested, we have upcoming team meetings up here on the screen. So if you're interested in getting involved in any of these teams, we have some email addresses and, team meeting dates available. So take a look at those. Lots of great stuff to get involved in. And next month, like Kristen mentioned, our annual picnic is happening on August 3rd, the first Monday of the month. And that is pending weather taking place at Brittingham Park. And if there is rain, we are getting a backup location as well, and we will let you all know what that backup location will be. And this is the end of our meeting if you have to go. However, if anybody is new and interested in potentially talking about volunteering or how they can get involved or different ways they can get involved, we will have a newcomer breakout at the end here. So you can talk to myself about, different ways you could possibly get involved. And like I said, there's that list of our teams and their meeting days available as well. So I want to wish everyone who is ready to go a good night, whether you're signing out or staying chat. But thank you so much, and we hope to see you again soon.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Good night.